My first contract with was for $65,000 a year. And I believe there was a $3,000 sign-on bonus. I either need to delete this app and seek professional help, or I need to find a way to turn this addiction into something productive.
Mhm.
I get a DM from somebody named Brittany Mims. Would you ever be interested in working backstage on Broadway? Also,
All right.
doctors, what is the hesitancy to send people to physical therapy? It's
I
no skin
know.
off your
I
teeth.
don't
Just
get
read the
it.
script. Who cares?
I literally
Yeah.
don't get it.
I would love it if people kept this book in the house the same way that you keep Advil around the house. Instead of reaching for a pill or some kind of medication that at the end of the day is probably just going to put a Band-Aid on the pain, you can take the opportunity to reach for the book and find some very easy things that you can start doing to start addressing the root cause.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Physio Diaries podcast. We are your co-hosts, Dr. Melanie Ziaziaris
and Dr. Alice Koshevatskiy, where students, healthcare professionals, and wellness junkies come to get the inside scoop of the healthcare and wellness industry.
the podcast you didn't know you needed, by your favorite travel physical therapist. Welcome back to the Physio Diaries podcast. And today we are so excited to welcome Dr. Dan Ginader, another doctor of physical therapy, former D1 baseball player, and current clinical director of MIMS Method in New York City. If you guys follow Dan on social media, then you know he is one of the most educational and informative physical therapists out there. We absolutely love your videos and can't wait to talk about the physical therapy profession and get to know you better. So let's get into it. Take us back to where it started. Why did you choose to become a physical therapist?
I think I found physical therapy the same way a lot of us find physical therapy. I knew that I wanted to help people directly. I knew that I in no way wanted to work a desk job. But I also knew that I didn't necessarily want to deal with life and death situations or blood or sickness or things like that. I also had a lot of injuries growing up, and I never had a bad time in physical therapy. And so through the laws of deduction, I decided that this would be a pretty solid profession.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely a very classic. I feel like my answer is the same. I wanted to work in healthcare. I wanted to help people, but I didn't want life or death situations, hospital rooms, not for me.
We want to
And I
help, but
was
we don't want the
like,
pressure.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
No emergencies, nothing like that. It needs to be
No.
taken care of, and then we'll come and see you.
Exactly.
So you said that you had injuries from baseball. What were the injuries you experienced?
My first big injury was I got Little League shoulder in the 7th grade. I was 13 or 14. I don't know if either of you have heard of Little League shoulder, but if anyone sitting out there hasn't heard of it, it's when you fracture the growth plate in your humerus. And it means that you basically just have to not throw a baseball for close to a year. And while I was doing that, I went to physical therapy, and that's where I first learned about the importance of rotator cuff strength and all the things that you can do to build up your body to help withstand the forces of playing a sport. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then the other major injury I had, at least in high school, was playing basketball. I fractured my ankle. Obviously, a fractured ankle, getting back to playing basketball involves quite a bit of physical therapy. And I just remember having a good time. And I thought it was cool how you could use your body to help heal your body. And I liked that it involved exercise. And I also liked, I mean, I'm sure you two can relate, but when you get a younger athlete in the clinic, it's always fun to come up with different exercises to challenge them. And it's always fun to just kind of be with them, and because they're so young and hopeful and full of life. And so I'm sure the PTs were also excited to have me there, which helped lead to a better experience. Those are the two biggies that landed me in PT growing up.
Yeah. Valid. And those are two pretty difficult injuries to come back from, especially as a kid when they tell you okay, you need to stop throwing, you can't do all these things. All you want to do is get back to doing your sport. What is this physical therapy thing they're sending me to? I've noticed a lot of my patients will also be I never knew about PT as a career, and I kind of wish I had known about it when I was younger and looked further into it or observed, because that's how a lot of people end up in the careers, having an injury or having a family member that had some surgery or injury. They're this is kind of cool. I kind of like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anytime anybody ends up being a physical therapist without having been there growing up or having a
Mhm.
direct family member go there growing up, I was like, how'd you find this?
How'd
Why
you learn
Yeah.
about us?
why are you
Yeah.
here? What are you doing?
Yeah. So you said that you had played baseball in college. Like, were you kind of thinking about physical therapy at the time? Did you go into college kind of thinking, this is the track I'm going to go on?
So I went to the University of Buffalo with the
Okay.
purpose of becoming an exercise science major because the
Hmm.
exercise science majors at Buffalo have a very high chance of getting into the Buffalo Physical Therapy program, which is
Okay. Hmm.
pretty good. It's a pretty good
Cool.
program. I grew up in New York. This was a state school for me, and it was also an opportunity to play Division One baseball.
Mm.
And even though I entered school with the idea of being a physical therapist, and then when it came to having a normal occupation, I was pretty sure that physical therapy would be the one. The only thing I ever truly wanted to be in my entire life was a baseball player. It's the
Mhm.
only thing I've ever wanted to be. My freshman year at Buffalo, I was pretty good. I could throw the ball pretty hard. Occasionally scouts would talk to me after the games and they would my key word was I was projectable. I was
Okay.
Uh-huh.
tall and lanky, and in the moment I wasn't good enough to be anything. But if everything broke right, I could be a somebody someday
Uh-huh.
maybe. And then right around my junior year, I suffered a shoulder injury that
Mm.
I just never truly bounced back from. It ended up being a slight tear in my labrum and tearing and fraying of the rotator cuff.
Mhm.
But the main problem for me was it wasn't a super complete tear. And even though it was painful, I could still push through it. I kind of chose in the moment that, oh, I can still throw. I'll just keep throwing. My velocity went down. I became a worse pitcher. And by the time I finally went and got it addressed, I was halfway through my senior season and I was
Mhm.
no longer projectable. I was old and broken. It in a sneaky way, it made going to physical therapy school easier because
Uh-huh.
I knew that I had hit the ceiling. I had reached my limit. Even if I got the surgery, which I never ended up getting, even if I got
Mhm.
the surgery, I was already in my senior year. I was out of eligibility. I would have had to take some very weird roads to do anything baseball related. And so I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? Just gonna go to physical therapy school. This will be great. This was always my plan B, and that's how I ended up in school.
How long have you been practicing now for?
I graduated physical therapy school in 2017.
Okay.
So I guess that
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
put me pretty close to about 8 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So take us then to after PT school or like, end of PT school, what you have been doing in terms of the profession between graduating and now.
Okay, so I graduated physical therapy school in 2017, and while I was an undergrad, I had met a girl from Indiana,
Okay.
and we
Mhm.
started dating at the beginning of my junior year and the beginning of her sophomore year. So we dated all through undergrad. But while I
Mhm.
stayed at physical therapy school at Buffalo, she decided to go to dental school back home in Indiana. I knew that I wanted to get my last clinical rotation in Indiana so that I could hopefully turn my last rotation into a job and be in
Yeah.
Indiana and kind of rejoin her and eliminate the long distance from our relationship. So that's
Mhm.
exactly what I did. I
Cool.
got my last clinical internship at an ATI physical therapy in
Mhm.
just north of Indianapolis, Indiana. And in my second week of that clinical internship, I signed a contract to start working there when I
Mhm.
graduated. So I was like, perfect. This is all going according to plan. I made it. And
Yeah.
then ATI Physical Therapy is one of the larger chains of physical therapy in the
Yeah.
country. At least when
Mhm.
I worked there, it was the largest chain under one name.
Mhm.
And we all know that large chains work on seeing a lot of patients all at once.
Mhm.
And
High volume.
it isn't
Yeah.
the most sustainable
Yeah.
way to make a living as a physical therapist.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
that being said, when I first joined ATI, it was early enough in their kind of storytelling of a company where the CEO was the original first physical therapist at the first ATI. The
Mhm.
CFO was like the second physical therapist that was ever hired.
Mhm.
And because there were still physical therapists in the C-suite, there were all kinds of perks. I mean, I couldn't tell you how much continuing education dollars that we
Yeah.
got on a yearly basis. And
Yeah.
there wasn't as much pressure to see a bunch of patients because they still understood what it felt like to see that many patients. At least my first year of ATI, I did all kinds of continuing ed. I got all
Mhm.
kinds of certs. It was still pretty busy, but
Mhm.
it was more doable. Right around a year, maybe like 8 or 9 months in, they kind of pushed out their, at least as far as I remember it. You can Google it for more specific. This is my story. This is my memoir. But right around a year for working for them, they pushed out the C-suite of PTs and they brought in some former insurance executives. And
Mm.
that is when everything really started to
Yeah.
shift for the worst.
Changed.
There was a lot more pressure to see more patients. By
Mhm.
that point, I had been promoted to clinic director, and it was like just the worst middle management you could ever imagine because there's all this
Mhm.
change going on at the top. I'm just taking in all these new orders and all this new pressure, and then
Mhm.
just relaying it to my employees because, of course, even though I'm a clinic director, I have no actual power. I just kind of have to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Middleman.
I'm just caught in the middle,
Yeah.
and so I think right around 18 months of working at ATI, I was the clinic director. I had
Wow.
8 employees under me. I was seeing close
Okay.
to 20 patients in a day,
Oh,
and
Mhm.
I
man.
was working 4 10-hour days.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I
Gotcha.
was applying to jobs outside of the profession.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, not even in physical therapy.
Not even physical therapy. I
Wow.
was like, I can't
Yeah.
do this. This is not
Yeah. The
sustainable.
burnout is
Not
real.
only am I working so hard, but I'm not really getting paid much to do it. If I'm
Mm.
going to work this hard and not enjoy what I'm doing anyway, I might as well just get into medical sales. So,
Yeah,
Listen, I've
exactly.
thought about it too. I have been like,
Yeah.
are people
There's definitely
switching?
days where I'm like, "Okay, dental hygienist, like, medical sales, what can I do?" But I think it sounds like ATI, like, at the time, in the beginning, was good for you, like, in terms of, like, growing as
Yeah.
a professional, and you're getting thrown so many patients, sometimes it just forces you to learn how to multitask, but then when all those changes came, it's kinda good that you were like, "Alright, time to
Ready
shift
to
gears,"
bounce.
because sometimes certain therapists stay in those, like, environments for way too long, and that's just, like,
Yeah.
a recipe for burnout, so, yeah,
And that story, like, there's so many company like, I can think
mm,
of so many other names of, like, franchises like that now. I mean, it's definitely an issue. It always starts
yeah.
off good, and after a year, they push more things, and then
Uh-huh.
insurance and pushing
Yeah.
numbers. They all
and
do
don't get me
it.
wrong, I still credit my experience there as the reason
Yeah.
I can think quickly as a physical therapist.
Exactly.
And I
True.
credit it as the reason that if stuff does go wrong, I know how to fix it in a meaningful manner, and I know how to fix it
Yeah.
around a caseload full of patients. And I saw
Mhm.
an insane amount of diagnoses very quickly. And also,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to become a clinic director very quickly, and I became very familiar
Yeah.
with what EBITDA meant. And looking at numbers and seeing how profitable a clinic can be, and looking at the numbers of other clinics and seeing how many patients turned into how many dollars. And I
Mhm.
learned that it is true that, in fact, if you run an in-network model, you do have to pack the people in. It's just
Mhm.
kind of how it works. Insurance payouts have not increased ever as far as I've been
No.
practicing for 8 years. They haven't increased. If anything, they've
Yeah.
gone down.
Mhm.
And the only way to make an in-network model work is to pack people in. And so I don't necessarily fault ATI or fault the model. It's just kind of
Yeah.
how
Mhm.
how you currently have to make money in that scenario. But definitely all credit to the people that can work there any longer than 2 years because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
agree
I
with that.
I certainly could not.
And I feel like when you look at those clinics too, like the fact that you became clinic manager like a year and a half out of practice, you're looking around and you're like, all these therapists are super young. That kind of tells you something too. It's like they're offering them these big sign on bonuses, but there's a reason because you have to stay with them for a year or else you end up paying that bonus back. So that's one thing as the new grad, because I started traveling as a new grad. I told myself, I'm like, whatever I can do, I'm going to try to stick to like one on one clinics and they're rare. Out west, there's more, but in Chicago, like where we're both from,
Yeah.
it's not
It's
often
rare.
at all. Like there's small little private practices, but like most of them, like I'd worked at an Athletico as like a tech. We have a lot of ATIs. It's on every corner in Chicago. One-on-one
Yeah.
clinics are getting more and more rare. which is kind of sad to see. But
Yeah. Since you brought up pay, if you don't mind sharing, you can like answer this how you want. But what was your starting salary and pay as a new grad? And then where was it when you like ended after you switched to like clinic director and whatnot?
I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain my first contract with ATI was for $65,000 a year. And I believe there was a $3,000 sign on bonus to sweeten the pot. Because, man, oh man, 68 grand. Woo.
yeah, and as a
Just,
Yeah.
student, that sounds amazing. Like when we've been working basically for a year and paying tuition, you're like, wow, like money signs everywhere.
and granted, I was in Indiana. I wasn't in, the
Yeah.
biggest market of all time. And I was able to stretch it. It worked. I
Mm.
did it. By the time that I was applying to medical sales jobs, I think when I got promoted to clinic director, I maybe got close to like a $5,000 bump. So now I'm operating at a $70,000 base. And
As clinic
then,
manager?
mhm.
Interesting.
Mm.
And then I was eligible for the clinic director bonus, which
Mm.
when I first started was a monthly bonus. And basically, any dollar figure that we operated above our budget, I got a cut of, which never turned into much. I believe
Mhm.
it would always come out to close to like $800 to $1,000 a month. I mean, it's definitely nothing to sneeze at. I was very happy. I was very happy to have it. But
Mhm.
when everything kind of the big major shift happened, instead of it being
Yeah.
a monthly bonus, it turned into a quarterly bonus. And that quarterly bonus became close to unattainable to the point to where I think after switching to the quarterly bonus, I was there for close to a full year. And I think I got it 2 out of the 4 quarters. So
Mm.
basically for
Mm.
half the year working as a clinic director, I was being paid as just a staff PT.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was
It
gonna
was
say
not awesome.
as clinic director, you have a lot more roles and responsibilities, and then
Yeah.
you were still expected to see a bunch of patients still,
And
like, your caseload
yeah,
didn't
20
change very much, right?
Didn't change at all. Yeah,
At all?
nope, saw the same amount of patients. I just ended up
Mhm.
coming to the clinic like earlier before I saw my first patient to do the extra paperwork.
Wow. See, that's just
Yeah.
like wild to me because, well, that was 2018, but now in 2025, like you would think that it would have gone up a bit, but I still hear like new grad PTs getting offered like 65K and I don't know, lowball offers. We like talk about pay all the time and yeah, I
Yeah.
have my own opinions on physical therapy pay. Yeah, that's wild that the switch
Yeah.
from like perm P or just like staff therapist to clinic director was such a small difference.
Yeah, it was negligible for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't blame you for Googling all those jobs. You're like, "What else can I
Yeah,
do to get paid more than
for
this and
sure.
probably to do less work and
Right.
be under probably a little bit less stress as well?" How
Mhm.
did you end up back in New York in your home state? What type of clinic and where are you working at now?
Well, there's a whole other job in between.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
as I was applying to medical sales jobs, I was contacted by a company called TX Team that I had heard of because another one of the clinic directors at ATI had left for TX Team close to a year prior. And he
Mhm.
had only had good stuff to say. One day he sent me a text saying, "Hey, I think we have an opening that you'd be a good fit for. Would you be interested in me putting your name in?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. Like, I'd love to." And so I met with them. And TX Team is a physical therapy company that specializes in opening physical therapy clinics inside places of work, whether they be
Mm.
office buildings or
Cool.
even like hospital systems, things like that. And they were looking for somebody because they were about to open up a physical therapy clinic inside the state government center of Indiana. And the state government
Okay.
center of Indiana is in downtown Indianapolis. It's a big, gorgeous campus. And at the time in 2019, they had close to 8,000 daily employees coming in and out. It was their idea to open up a medical center for the employees that work there. They had
Yeah.
already hired a PA and a nurse practitioner to do general medical care. The physical therapist would be the second team member brought on. And then eventually the goal would also be to hire a dietitian, a dentist, a psychologist, kind of a one-stop
Wow.
shop for all the
Yeah.
employees. And because obviously we're in the building, we would be in network and it would all be very kosher. The only insurance that we would take would be the very specific government insurance of the people that work there. And
Gotcha.
not only could we see the 8,000 daily employees, but also if they chose any of their dependents, we'd be able to see as well. And that number was close to like 15 to 16,000 people. So I met with them in the government center, and they basically asked me what my dollar figure that I wanted to work there was. And I gave them the number of the money that I was currently making. And if I hit like my pie in the sky dream bonuses as clinic director at ATI, that's what I wanted. And they offered me even more than that. So I think I got paid hourly. And I think, I don't remember what it was, but it was close to like $50 an hour,
Okay.
which over the
Yeah.
course of the year, I remember being just under like $90,000. And it was like, that's the most money I've ever heard of. This is so great. And not only would I be working in a place where all my patients also worked, but also all the treatments would be one-on-one. So
Oh,
in
wow.
network,
That's nice.
only one insurance,
Yeah.
one-on-one appointments, and I'd be the only physical therapist in there, and I would have close to complete autonomy,
Yeah.
other
That's
than
great.
occasional check-ins with my higher up, who honestly didn't come in person that much. Uh, most weeks I would be the only PT there. I would open up shop, close up shop. It would be all mine, and it just sounded like the dream. I started there in late November of 2019. And by the first week of December 2019, I had a full caseload. It took off like
Wow.
Yeah.
gangbusters. I was
That's
full.
amazing.
Not only was I full, but even after 3 weeks, I saw the benefit of just how much faster somebody could get better. I knew like, oh, this ankle injury, this will take me 10
Yeah.
visits. This knee
For sure.
injury, this will take me 14 visits. And when I started treating one-on-one, those numbers cut in half.
Yeah.
And everybody showed up on time because they worked in the building. Everybody was so thankful that I was there. I had never experienced that as a physical therapist, just like people being thankful that I was there.
Yeah. I'm like happy to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I was convinced by like early January. I was like, this is it. This
You were
is the
living the
future of physical
dream.
therapy. We're going to we're going to the people. We're going to be in network. They're going to be happy we're there. We're only seeing them one-on-one for an hour, full privacy. This is going to revolutionize the business. And then,
Oh no.
as I'm sure you both, remember, close to a month after that, being a physical therapist inside of an office building went from being the best job ever to quite literally being no job at all,
Yeah.
because people stopped coming to offices.
Oh,
And
COVID.
right around March, when the world closed, from March to close to the end of May, I saw exactly 0 patients.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
But you were
Not a
still
one.
technically employed. Like
I was
in the
employed.
clinic.
We were
Okay.
fortunate enough to qualify for the PPP loan. So the second the PPP loan came out, we qualified. So I was good for most of the year. And then even in the early days, they were awesome to work with. They would give me projects to work on, stuff that we had talked about in the past, because not only did they provide physical therapy inside office buildings, but we would also do like return to work screens for manual laborers returning from like work comp. So we had our hand in a bunch of stuff. So I would put together presentations for these manual laborers, and I would put together business plans for like other businesses that we could be a part of. And they gave me stuff to do and paid me to do it. And I am forever thankful for how I was treated. And I still, to this day, very much stand up for TX teams. They're just a wonderful company in physical therapy. I was so happy to have them when I did.
Yeah.
But inside of that time of having exactly no patients, I developed, again, along with most of the rest of the country, a crippling TikTok addiction.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I very specifically remember the last week of April of 2020, the Screen Time app said that I spent 42 hours in 1 week on TikTok.
Oh my gosh.
Just
What else
scrolling.
was there to
Just
do?
consuming
Doom
content.
scrolling.
Just
All day.
doom scrolling. At the time, I remember thinking, I either need to delete this app and seek professional help, or I need to find a way to turn this addiction into something productive.
Mhm.
And at the time, TikTok was mostly memes and pranks and
Yeah.
jokes and dances and music. But
Uh-huh.
I saw one chiropractor from
Oh,
Seattle. He made
Interesting.
this video on neck pain, and it had 2.5 million views. And it
wow.
was just
Wow.
very simple. It was on, I still remember it was on the levator scapulae.
Okay.
And it was
Uh-huh.
just describing what the muscle was
Uh-huh.
and a simple stretch. It literally took him 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't very good. And I was like, well,
Low
I could do
quality.
that.
Low
I
Yeah.
effort,
could
low
do that.
quality.
Yeah.
Um, and I was also terrified that this profession I chose for being so safe and this job that I had recently found
Mhm.
that was so great could be taken from me that easily.
That
Yeah.
quickly.
I did start driving delivery for like the DoorDash equivalent of
Mhm.
Indianapolis,
Mhm.
just to get a little extra
Yeah.
money coming in because even though they were giving me work to do, it certainly wasn't 40 hours of work to do.
Mhm.
Um, but I was like, well, this isn't the best way to make. I just left ATI to make more money. Like driving delivery is not going to be my ticket to making more money in this profession. I
Mhm.
thought maybe there's a chance if I start posting content, I can still use the education I paid a lot of money for. I can still continue to help people with this information, specifically again what I went to school to do.
Mhm.
And number three, I get to write off my addiction as market research. And
Exactly.
so in May of 2020, I posted my first ever TikTok. I was posting pretty consistently, like 8 to 10 times a week for 2 to 3 weeks. And then
Okay.
I
Mhm.
went viral for the first time.
Nice.
And that one viral video took me from about 1,000 followers to 15,000 followers. And then
Oh
it was
wow.
I've been
Wow.
going
Yeah.
ever since.
Just going up from there.
So what was that
And
viral video before you go
so
any further?
the viral video was my content back in the early days of TikTok or the early days of me posting on TikTok very much mirrored the popular trends of TikTok. Now, of
Mhm.
course, if you
Yeah.
have your For You page tuned in right, you'll scroll and
Mhm.
scroll, and it's just people educating you, people talking, like talking to camera. But that's just not what the app looked like when I first started.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so there was a song that was having a viral moment, and it was about twerking. It was about twerking,
Uh-huh.
and it was something to the effect of like, if I back it up, is it
Oh my
fast enough?
gosh.
Like you might remember it.
We all know that sound.
Yeah. And to the tune of that song, I did my 7 favorite glute exercises.
Ah, I love it.
Love it.
And it really hit with people,
Yeah.
and to the moon.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And obviously over
Amazing.
time, my content has now shifted into 90 seconds of education, this and that. But
Mhm.
that took a lot of time for me to get to that point, I would say. I started posting on TikTok. Eventually the world, healed kind of.
Mhm.
And I worked at that clinic and in that space, or for that, at least for that company, until I left Indiana. Because the girl that I had moved to Indiana to be with, I was still with and still very happy
Mhm.
with. She had always had big city dreams. When she graduated dental school, first in her class, not to brag,
Oh,
she only
Very
had eyes
nice.
on becoming an orthodontist.
mhm.
So she then stayed in Indiana for her orthodontic residency for 2 years. And then she knew that we were going to want to move to a big city. And a big reason why we chose New York, I think, is because I'm from New York. And when
Mm,
she used to visit me, we would come into New York. So we're very familiar with New York. I was definitely team New York. So
mhm.
she only applied to jobs in New York. She got a job in New York. And so we moved to New York.
Amazing.
And I was lucky enough to had just done like a very big contract work for an online physical therapy platform. They
Mhm.
paid me a whole mess of money to just make a video series. I did one video series on posture and one video series on pain science
Mhm.
because they provide online physical therapy services to massive companies like
Oh, cool.
Pepsi and Adidas
Oh,
and
wow.
these huge companies. They were basically a service that was rolled into the patient experience for these companies.
Mhm.
And other than just providing telehealth visits, they also wanted some kind of hub where they could learn.
Mhm.
And they were just forming this hub. They were going to have 5 of their on-staff PTs make these videos, and then I was going to be like the one guest speaker. I flew out to this studio in Portland, Oregon. Of course, like I had written all the scripts and gotten it vetted by their researcher and made sure that everything was sound, made sure everything sounded okay. And I flew out to Portland, Oregon for this big deal. I had my makeup done for the first time. There was a
Wow.
director.
Official.
There
You
were
got your
there were like
glam.
Yeah.
exactly there was a three camera setup. Like it was like what like,
Wow.
and I remember standing there looking at looking at the teleprompter, and there's 6 people around me. And I'm like, these 6 people, these they're going to be here all day. I'm going to mess this up so bad. I'm going to stutter over myself. I'm not going to be able to keep up with the teleprompter. And they're going to hate me so much because I just can't do this. But it ended up going okay. If you're working for a company and you have access to Sword, the company's called Sword,
Mhm.
my videos still exist. You can watch them
It's
on
still
the
there.
platform. They're still there.
Cool.
I
I'm looking
had
them up.
I had a patient that worked for a company that had access to Sword, and he came in one day. He goes, I saw you. I was like,
You're that
I saw you
guy.
on Sword. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, they paid me about 2/3 of my entire first year of ATI to do that video
Yeah.
series.
Gotta say.
Wow. So
And
I have a really
so,
quick question.
yeah,
Was
please.
this an opportunity that arose because they found you through your videos and like
Yes,
TikTok and everything?
they found me through TikTok.
Social media,
And
man.
Wow. Yeah, the power of social media.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that they were worried that their on-staff PTs wouldn't make the best videos, and because they
Mhm.
already liked my videos, they were like, "Well, at
Yeah.
least let's pay for some stuff that we know how it's gonna turn out." And they paid me handsomely to do it. That was like a few months before we moved to New York. When we moved to New York, I didn't feel pressure to find a job right away. I
Mhm.
was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I don't
You got
necessarily
some
want
cushion.
to." Exactly.
Mhm.
I've got some cushion. I can be boots on the ground, and I can figure it out when I get there. I was at the time negotiating another similar deal with a very big company. I did sign an NDA, and that contract never happened. I can't say what
Mhm.
company that is,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
as I was negotiating that, I was like, "Oh, this is my next thing. And then this is what I'll just do forever. I'll just make videos for these companies and they'll pay me so much money and maybe I'll write a book or whatever." Uh, but
Coming soon.
um,
Yeah.
right. So I was negotiating with this company about 2 weeks before what was going to be my final screen test in Columbus Circle in Manhattan. It was just going to be, they're going to get me on camera, they're going to see how I operate, and then we're going to sign the paperwork and we're going to be good to go. And I'm going to start this whole big physical therapy series for this company. About 2 weeks before that, I hadn't heard from my point person in a while. I was like, this
Mm.
is weird. I should have had more updates by now. I
Oh.
send them an email just to check in and see what's going on. And it came back as invalid. It got kicked back at me. I was like,
Oh,
that's
Uh-oh.
weird. That stinks.
yeah.
Not a
And
good sign.
so I Googled the company. The first thing that pops up on Google is that, so and so lays off half of their employees. It
Uh-oh.
was it was part of like that kind of like post-COVID crash type of
Yeah.
whatever. And they
Mhm.
had put a little bit too much money into something that wasn't making any money. And
I
they
see.
Mhm.
decided to lay off almost everybody as a result of it. So that fell
Yikes.
apart.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
very luckily, about a week after that, I get a DM from somebody named Brittany Mims out of the blue. Never met her before, never heard of her. The vibe of what it says is, would you ever be interested in working backstage on Broadway? And I was like, well, that's a cool
Wow.
sentence. I've got
Yeah.
nothing but time.
Like, I'm
I've
I'm
intrigued.
got
intrigued.
I've got literally all the time in the world. I'll follow up on this. So I
Yeah.
set up a time to meet her. At the time, she was working at what was essentially a WeWork for healthcare practitioners. So you walk
Mm.
in, it's a really gorgeous space. There are about
Mhm.
8 private treatment rooms. There's a gym
Oh,
space, there's a Pilates area.
yeah.
It was gorgeous. If you were a PT, personal trainer, chiropractor, massage therapist, whatever it may be, you were able to rent the room, like rent a private room for $40 an hour. You could rent
Oh, I
space in the
see.
gym for $30 an hour. And so you
Gotcha.
could go into business for yourself and have access to this really gorgeous place and see clients or patients with no overhead. So I go there, I meet with her. We end up talking for 3 hours. We just hit it off immediately. The reason that she had contacted me for the Broadway stuff was because she was the physical therapy provider for 2 shows on Broadway. At the time, it was Chicago and Beetlejuice. A lot of the shows on Broadway really want physical therapists to come in on the weekends It's
Mhm.
hard to find people that can do every weekend. And so she was looking to add me to her Rolodex of people that could work on the weekends. And after 3 hours of talking and really kind of liking each other and vibing, I was like, well, Brittany, the funny thing about working an occasional weekend is that I'd really love to work 40 hours a week. I know it's a small little jump in terms of what you had in mind, but I think we can figure this out. It took her some time to think about it because at the time she just had a PTA that was working like 15 hours a week. And then she had
Mhm.
another PT that she had under her umbrella that was treating like 8 hours a week. Because she was working in what was basically a WeWork, it was hard for her to grow in that scenario. We decided to take a risk on each other. Again, I had a
Mhm.
nice little financial cushion and I just really liked her and I believed in her so much. And that is basically what turned into my job today. 4 months after I met her, we opened up our brick and mortar. A few months after that, we hired two
Amazing.
brand new full time physical therapists. Not long after that is when I was promoted to clinic director and we hired an HR company and now we have insurance benefits. We hired two or three more physical therapists. And now our clinic in Manhattan, if you contact us today, we probably
Mhm.
can't get you in for an evaluation until about late October. We're busting at the seams. We are so busy and we really can't hire anybody else because we've maxed out our rooms. Over the span of just 3 years, the relationship has gone from a DM to a bustling clinic and it's just worked out so well and I couldn't be more thankful.
So you've been at the same clinic for several years now. You got promoted to like clinic director, and you've been there for a couple years. But now with like your booming online presence, do you feel like you always want to be treating? Are you currently treating like a full caseload? And how do you juggle all like the social media along with like managing the clinic right now?
I do have a full caseload. See roughly, if you count the hours that I'm at a theater, we'll call it
Mhm.
30 patient hours. The rest of my time is for admin, and just for traveling because to get to the clinic, to get from the clinic to the theater, and I do take a daily 2 hour lunch, and it's the 2 hour lunch where I spend a lot of the editing and filming for the social media. It's my goal. I work Monday through Thursday, and it's my
Mhm.
goal that every day that I work, I make a video. I'm normally pretty good
Okay.
about doing it for 3 of the days. So I've
Mhm.
kind of gone to the point now where I'm posting 3 videos a week.
Uh,
It is certainly a lot to manage.
mhm.
I'm pretty tired pretty often, but it's so fulfilling and it's going so well. And I also am always ready for the social media side of things to dry up. I
Mhm.
am still shocked that I still have videos that go viral very often and I still get the engagement that I do. And
Mhm.
I'm still surprised that people have not lost interest in me. And I'm not taking it for granted. I'm treating this as very much a moment in time where I'm trying to take advantage. When the opportunity comes, I would love to invest in the practice where I currently work. I've always had the goal of, ever since I started seeing what social media can do and seeing what this side of physical therapy can provide, it's been my goal to not have to treat patients by the time I turn 40. And I just
Mhm.
turned 33.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
that is my theoretical goal, even though I do intend to always be treating because I
Mhm.
enjoy it and because, especially if after I turn 40, if all I'm doing is making educational content, I know for a fact that if I stop seeing patients, I will lose touch. I know that I will become less relatable and I won't be sharing as accurate information just because I'm not treating anymore. So I will always be treating, but I'd love to
Mhm.
not have to be treating by the time I turn 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
No,
a
that's
good
totally
goal.
valid.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to circle back because you were saying you're posting a lot of content even now, and you probably have like hundreds of videos on your page for like every body part, every kind of condition, everything. Where do you draw your inspiration from for your videos, and how do you like not run out of things to like post content
Well, Alice, the beautiful thing about social media is
on?
people have a very short attention span.
Yes, this is
And
true.
even people that have been following me for a while may not necessarily realize that in order to post this often, there are only so many things you can post about in physical therapy. because A, it needs to be interesting. It
Uh-huh.
also needs to be vague enough to where it applies to a bunch of people, but also has to be specific enough that people resonate with it. And the stuff that you show has to be safe enough that assuming if people do everything they see on TikTok, that
Uh-huh.
if they are suffering with what you're talking about, they're not going to hurt themselves. Then it also has to be unique enough that they haven't really seen it somewhere else or heard it somewhere else. And when you take all of those things that you need to go right to make a good video, there are only so many things that you can make videos on. Every 2 to 3 months, I'll just repackage a video with a slightly different wording or maybe like a slightly different exercise. But a lot of what I make these days is just repackaging stuff I've already talked about because I talk
Mhm.
about it in a new enough way. Either people haven't caught on, or when people are like, hey, you posted something like this 3 months ago. I tried doing it and now I feel a lot better. And I was like, well, that's really cool.
Mhm.
Uh, Nobody's really kind of docked me for it. And also, every time I
Mhm.
do show it, tons of new people see it and it reaches all kinds of new populations and things like that. So occasionally I do come up with original ideas. And then it's always based on how a patient presented in clinic or a comment that I saw or even just something that happened to me, or I was scrolling through social media and I saw
Mhm.
somebody get hurt in a very unique way where I was like, oh, that would make a good video. Um, but a lot of what I do now in order to just keep coming up with videos, it is recycled from previous uh, Smart Dan
Mhm.
ideas because Dan has gotten too busy now to come up with a lot
Yeah.
of original ideas.
Hey, if
It
it works, it
yeah.
works.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. We have talked about this a lot on the podcast, and I've talked about a lot on my social media, and we always get so much controversy about it. I'm just curious about your perspective. For one, do you introduce yourself as Dr. Dan to your patients? To how do you feel about physical therapists calling themselves doctors or like doctors of physical therapy?
I introduce myself to my patients as Dan. When I'm
Okay.
in the clinic, I prefer to just go as Dan.
Yeah.
When I am presenting myself in an educational sense, much in the same way that a professor goes by Dr. So and so, I think it's
Mhm.
appropriate that I also, so my social media platform is Dr. Dan DPT. I went
Yeah.
to school for the doctorate, I earned the doctorate, and when I'm educating people, I use the doctorate because I think that's appropriate. In the clinic, I
Mhm.
introduce myself as Dan because we are officially in a healthcare setting. I am providing you with healthcare and I just don't want to muddy those waters even a little bit. That being said, I do think that if you introduce yourself as Dr. So and so, I think that's totally appropriate. If that's if that's the way you like to introduce yourself. I do think though that it is important if you are introducing yourself as I'm Dr. So and so, you also make it very clear in the back end that I will be your physical therapist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The one sect of the doctor that I don't like is I don't like when physical therapists present themselves as doctor without putting the DPT at the end, because I think that
Mhm.
is intentionally misleading. And
Yeah.
I don't like when physical therapists refer to themselves as a doctor, full stop. I
Yeah.
think every time you say, I'm a doctor, you really do need the of physical therapy afterwards.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's some people like that don't even know, that's just the general public doesn't know that we have a doctorate degree. Because it's still like relatively new, at least like for the older population. They know like bachelor's, master's. A lot of people just have no idea and don't know how much autonomy we have because of it. Personally, don't ever come into an email. I'm like, Dr.
Yeah.
Alice, or like, but when we talk about our degrees and our profession, I do try to educate my patients and tell them, like, yeah, we have a doctorate degree. This is what it means in terms of practicing. When they ask, like, what's the difference between you and like a PTA, or like, what degree do you have? I always explain it to them. But I don't know. I definitely had coworkers that will come and be like, I'm Dr. So and so. But I totally agree that like you need to follow it up with like I of physical therapy, because
Yeah.
that can be very confusing to patients. Like they don't know the difference. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I like went to my doctor's appointment today." It's like, "No, you were in physical therapy. Like that is different."
I have like just seen so much uh, controversy on TikTok. I've
Yeah.
seen people say like, oh, it's a scam degree and like it's not actually, what it is. I'm just like, ugh, the energy.
It's just not that
Yeah.
deep, really.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Exactly. Another kind of controversial thing in the PT world, we do get patients sometimes that come in, they'll be like, I tried these TikTok exercises that I found and they didn't work. It's patients that should not be doing TikTok exercise that probably should be coming in, getting evaluated by a therapist. But for some people, definitely there's certain exercises that are really good for them and they would definitely work. We're a very small podcast, but we've gotten backlash on like certain videos that went a little bit more viral. So what criticism do you get from like either other therapists or other people in like the medical field with posting content online? And what would you say like in response to that?
I've gotten close to no backlash.
That's
There have
good.
been certainly, I mean, I've posted close to 1,000 videos, and there have been a
Uh-huh.
few videos that stick out in my mind where it was very much my fault. I worded something improperly. I didn't properly explain myself. The way that I framed the information is not what I meant to get across, and that has led to some angry comments. I work incredibly hard to make sure that everything that I say is backed in research, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that everything that I say comes with a lot of ifs, maybes.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this work I couch it in very specific language that
Mm-hmm.
is not, you should always, you should never, you should,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
this one thing will make you feel, I use very like soft language. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you do a good job of explaining yourself, you use soft language and you make sure that everything you're talking about is based in some sort of research or data, then there's really nothing for people to get mad at. And for the most part, in
Mm-hmm.
my videos, if there is a negative comment, I've now gotten to the point where I'm lucky enough to have cultivated a following, and the following is
Mm-hmm.
along for the ride of my videos because they appreciate my approach and because they're people of the same approach when there's a negative comment. Now I just have to wait for other people to respond to them for me, which is really
They just
great.
do it for you.
Um,
True.
but I do think that there is something to be said for. I also grew up with like a mother that was worried about all the negative things that could ever happen if you did anything. And so before I post a video, I'm actively thinking, how could somebody take this the wrong way, or what angle could
Mm-hmm.
somebody see this from that would lead to them being upset? And
Mm-hmm.
I try to frame it all around that.
Yeah.
That's a great point to make. You have a book coming out in December called The Pain Free Body. Can you tell us about the book?
I would love to tell you about the book, The Pain Free Body. It's my first book, maybe only book. We'll see. But the idea behind The Pain Free Body is when you open the book, you're greeted with a table of contents that is essentially just an anatomical model. And you have
Mm-hmm.
page numbers that are pointing to every major muscle and every major joint. And the idea is if you're struggling with some sort of discomfort in one of those areas, you turn to
Mm-hmm.
the associated page, and then you are greeted with maybe like 4 to 6 of the most common things that can cause pain or discomfort in that area. There's really pretty illustrations. I use layman's terms. I'm talking as if you are just an average patient in the clinic. And I
Mm-hmm.
walk you through what it might feel like if this is what you're experiencing, what the physiology is behind this, if this is what you're experiencing, just to kind of help educate and guide people in the right direction. And then at
Mm-hmm.
the end of each section, I provide self massage techniques, stretching, mobilization techniques, and exercises that I've used with my patients that have
Mm-hmm.
experienced those types of things. So I tried to make it kind of a one stop shop for common aches and pains. And the
Mm-hmm.
idea behind the book is that I would love it if people kept this book in the house the same way that you keep Advil around the house, where you
Mm-hmm.
almost kind of forget that
I
you
love
have it
that.
until all of a sudden something hurts. Now, instead of reaching for a pill or some kind of medication that at the end of the day is probably just going to put a band-aid on the pain, you can take the opportunity to reach for the book, very quickly learn some possibilities of what it might be, and find some very easy things that you can start doing to start addressing the root cause. That is the overall idea and vibe behind the book.
I love that
That
you said it like that.
yeah.
The reasoning is so greatly worded. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
you're reaching for Advil, like that type of vibe, which is important because People love
Yeah.
reaching for that Tylenol and Advil for anything.
They do, yeah. And I was gonna say too, like a big part of our job as PTs is literally just educating the general public. A lot of people don't know. They think like, oh, that's my bicep. I'm like, no, like your bicep's not quite there. Like just general education and knowing like which part of your body is actually aching and like trying some general movements that can make it better before immediately being like, okay, like let me pop a pain pill or something. It's really good because that's like a very good resource for people to have. And you said you have beautiful colors and pictures. So it sounds like a great resource. And when does the book come out officially?
The book comes out on December 9th. If
December
you
9th.
are
Okay.
listening to this or watching this before December 9th, you can pre-order it anywhere major books are available. Target, Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, of course. If you
Hmm.
don't like supporting capitalism and corporate giants, you can also pre-order it through some select independent bookstores. So
Oh, I
it is
love that.
widely available. I'm sure, be posting about it a lot more moving forward, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really very happy with it, and I think it's going to do a lot of good.
I was gonna ask, how long has this been in the making?
I was approached by the publishing company in
Oh,
October of last year,
Okay.
okay.
and I signed on very quickly because the name of the publishing company is Victory Belt Publishing,
Hmm.
who, at least when I was in school, the biggest book in all of physical therapy was The Supple Leopard by Kelly Starrett. I'm not sure if that is a book either of you have heard of. Also, a book that I use as a resource. It's called Rebuilding Milo, which is a book written by his name is Aaron, and he runs the profile Squat University. If you've ever come across
Mm,
him on physical
yeah.
therapy, so every big book in physical therapy that I've ever heard of, or in like the health wellness space, they've published, and so they had like
Hmm.
a lot of built-in buy-in for me. So I signed on pretty quickly, and I started writing in November, and I officially finished the manuscript in like the end of June. So again, I
Oh,
work Monday
okay.
through Thursday. Every
Uh-huh.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I would sit down for at least 3 to 5 hours
Oh
a
my
day
gosh.
and
Yeah.
Wow.
write the book. So, and it took me
Oof.
from November to June to do that. So it was a lot of work, and I did reach
Hmm.
a couple stages of burnout, but
Yeah.
I think it was all worth it because I'm finally now getting some pages back and seeing what the final product will look
Okay.
like, and I'm really very proud of it.
You're seeing all the fruits of your labor
Right.
come to life. I was gonna say too, because I know you mentioned like when I think you were in Indiana, you were kind of thinking like, I don't know if I should, work in like medical sales or write a book. And it kind of came all for full circle because here
Mhm.
you are coming out with a book pretty soon. So really done it all, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
like I
really
said, it's all
excited to
working
see.
out. It's pretty
It's all
cool.
Yeah.
working out. Yeah, all these people somehow find you and it kinda lands right where it needs to be, so that's all exciting stuff. We would love to check it out, so definitely we'll look into pre-ordering that
Yeah,
because that seems like a good resource, honestly, to even recommend to our patients. Because
for
I
sure.
personally don't know of any that are, like, really because you need it to be straightforward, if it's
Yeah,
really, like, technical, patients would be like, "Okay, forget it." Like, it's just gonna, sit there. So it's nice that you break it down, you make it really straightforward and simple for people to understand. So I love that. Before we wrap up the episode, we wanted to do like a quick little rapid fire round. You can just kind of answer first thing that comes to mind with these questions. Okay. So are you ready?
I'm ready, I think.
Okay. All right. What's your coffee order of choice?
Depends on the season.
Okay.
Is that enough of an answer?
Actually, yeah. What about
summer.
this season right now? Yeah.
This season, right now, if I were to order a coffee tomorrow, and I know this
Yes.
defeats the purpose of a rapid round, I'm sorry, but I would
You're
go
good.
hot Americano.
Okay. Perfect.
Oh, just straight Americano. All
Depending on
right.
my mood. Again, it's all very mood dependent. We could really get into the nitty gritty here on this rapid fire question that you just asked me. But if I get a coffee tomorrow, hot Americano.
All right.
Okay. Perfect. All right. What's your go-to recovery tool that you absolutely could not live without?
Hot take, you can live without any recovery tools. They're not important.
Oh,
That being
oh, I
said,
love that.
Yeah.
I would choose a massage gun.
Mm.
Those are nice. Yeah. I agree on that one. What's your favorite diagnosis or body part to treat?
Hot take. I don't think that you should have a favorite diagnosis or body part. I think you should have.
All these are going to be hot takes. This is good.
All the
I
hot
think
takes.
it's all patient dependent. I love a motivated patient that
Yeah.
seeks me out because they want to get better, and that motivated patient could show up with any body part, and they would be my favorite patient that I saw that day.
Okay.
Yes. Very true. I love
Good
that.
answer. We love a motivated patient because, not everyone's
Yes.
always motivated to come see us. You're
No.
like, I got to
Definitely
roll it
not.
here today. Got to see this chick, Alice. We're probably going to have a hot take on this one. But what is one body part that you don't love to treat?
Feet.
Oh,
Okay.
there you
All
go.
right. So we know what
You
you
were,
don't like.
yeah, I was going to say. Yeah, I agree.
It's not
That
that I
was not
don't
my
like it. It's
favorite.
just like of all the things that I could treat, foot's at the bottom.
Yeah. Okay. What is the most overused PT buzzword right now?
Bulletproof.
Oh, yeah. Like bulletproof your
yeah.
ankle, bulletproof
Bulletproof
your
your
knee.
knee.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. What is one content creator or PT that you draw inspiration from?
There are two that come to mind. One is Aaron of Squat University. I just think that he shares such valuable information. Then I really like Dr. Mike.
Okay.
Dr. Mike is not a
know
physical
that.
therapist. He is a physician.
Oh, okay.
But
Is he from New York?
I think
He sounds
so. I think he is
familiar.
from New York. But
Okay.
he is very patient centric. He's always talking to the average person.
Uh-huh.
And anytime that I see one of his videos pop up, I think, oh, that's how I would say that. Like that was really smart and bright. Dr. Mike, I think, is really great.
Yeah, go check him out. What is one movement everybody should be doing daily?
Depends on what's wrong with you.
It depends. Classic
Just
PT
I
answer.
take it back.
general.
I take it back. Everybody should be doing tummy time.
Tummy time.
Tummy
Oh, I say that
time.
all the time. I'm literally always telling my older patients, like, adult tummy time is great. Do it more.
Everybody should be
Yeah.
doing tummy time.
And they look
Yeah.
at you like you have four heads. They're like, honey, I haven't laid on my stomach in 5 years.
I love tummy time.
It is
Yes.
grounding. It's literally grounding. It's amazing. Last one for a rapid fire round. So one misconception about physical therapy in general.
A misconception about physical therapy.
That it's pain and
I
torture.
think it's pain and torture, sure. I think the misconception is people don't really truly grasp the scope of what we can help them with. For the most part, a lot of people think it's just for post-surgical reasons or post-traumatic injury, and they don't really understand that we could see you for any sort of thing that gives you any sort of issue. And I think that it'd be a lot better if people understood that.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. I was just talking to a patient about that today, actually, because she asked her physician for a referral for physical therapy because she was diagnosed with osteoporosis. And that's literally the only reason she wanted to come. And she was like, my doctor looked at me like I was crazy, but I was like, I want the referral. I was like, good for you. Kudos
Good for
to
you.
you.
Yeah, she's advocating for herself. We love it.
Also,
All right.
doctors, what is the hesitancy to send people to physical therapy? It's
I
no skin
know,
off your
I
teeth.
don't
Just
get
write a
it.
script. Who cares?
I
Yeah.
literally don't get it.
Yeah.
You can even tell
There's-
your patient, be like, I don't believe in this, but you could try physical therapy. Like,
Yes,
whatever it
they
takes for
literally
you to
tell
do
them
it.
that.
But why are you
Yeah.
actively discouraging people from sending people to a no risk, only reward proposition?
Yeah.
I don't vibe with that.
Yeah.
You know what's really crazy, actually, I was going to say, is the first time, I think this week, I know I've like heard patients come back and tell me like, okay, like my doctor said I could try PT, but it likely wasn't going to work and I was going to need surgery anyways. But this week was the first time that I actually read it in a doctor's note where they said I had explained to the patient today that they can do a trial of physical therapy and that it was likely not going to improve at all. And I was like, what? It was just crazy to me to like read that in words, the
Yeah.
audacity. And you know that like this is a note that I'm going to see because you referred them over to me. And like, how could you do that to us? First of all, it was just absolutely wild to see it like in writing. So you just kind of blew off our entire profession, which is great.
Also, Pain Science 101 is education about pain and optimism around pain
Yeah.
improves your
Mhm.
pain. Just those
Yeah,
two things.
exactly.
It may not be a magic fix, but it can at least feel a little better. It just does. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. There's one physician that I just found out at this new clinic I'm at that he's like a physician in the area. He does hip
Mhm.
replacements. He doesn't believe in physical therapy and does not send any of his patients to physical therapy after hip replacement. And I was like, what? That's like
Yeah.
crazy. I just
It's
don't get
pretty
it.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And how are
He
your
just says walk.
outcome later
Right. He
on?
just tells them to walk. I'm like, okay. So how about that hip mobility? What about that
Yeah.
squatting? Like stairs,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, that kind of wraps up this episode for today. Dan, do you have any finishing thoughts or anything you want to say that we didn't necessarily touch on before we wrap up?
My finishing thought is sorry for having the longest rapid question round of all
Oh
time
no,
for this.
you're good. You're totally fine.
That's okay. We like to elaborate here, so
Yeah.
that's okay. That is a wrap on today's episode with the one and only Dr. Dan. Dan, thank you so much for joining us and finding the time to chat with us in between your crazy busy life. Make sure you guys follow Dr. Dan on Instagram and TikTok. And your handle is at dr.dan_DPT.
dr.dan_DPT, both TikTok and Instagram.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you're not following him, you definitely should be because he has amazing content and you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed today's episode, then we'd love a 5-star rating as we are 5-star girlies and always are trying to make this podcast bigger and better for you guys. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Physio Diaries. Bye, guys.
Bye.